Most people think narratives just exist, that they appear naturally, that they are simply reflections of reality. But narratives are not random. They are built, and once you understand how they are built, you start to see them everywhere. A narrative usually starts with a moment, an event, a story, something that gets attention. But one moment is not enough to create a narrative. It becomes a narrative through repetition. You hear the same type of story again, and again, and again. Over time, the story begins to feel familiar. And what feels familiar often gets accepted as true, even if it is incomplete, or selective, or taken out of a much larger reality. Let me give you a simple example. If every time you turn on the news, you see the same type of story connected to the same group of people, your mind starts to associate the two, not because you studied it, not because you researched it, but because you saw it repeatedly. That is how narratives begin to form. Now let's take it a step further. Narratives are not just built through media. They are reinforced in everyday conversations, at work, at home, among friends. Someone repeats what they heard. Another person agrees. No one questions it. And now the narrative feels even more real. Because it is no longer just something you saw. It is something you hear from people around you. Over time, the narrative becomes the default explanation. People stop asking if it is accurate. They start assuming it is. And once that happens, perception is shaped. And perception influences behavior. How people are treated, what is expected of them, what is overlooked, and what is accepted without question. But here is what is important to understand. A narrative does not have to be completely false to be misleading. It only has to be incomplete. It only has to highlight one part of reality while ignoring the rest. And when that happens consistently, it creates a distorted picture that feels complete. In real life, this shows up in subtle ways. In how people describe entire communities. In how policies are discussed. In how opportunities are given or withheld. In how quickly assumptions are made. And in how rarely those assumptions are challenged. Once you understand how narratives are built, you start to see that they are not just stories. They are systems. Systems of repetition. Systems of reinforcement. Systems that shape how reality is interpreted. And if we are serious about understanding the world clearly, we have to learn to recognize those systems. Because once you see how a narrative is built, you are no longer limited to accepting it. You can question it, you can examine it, and you can begin to separate perception from reality. Learn more at Truthwell.com.